at the moment.
It just seems to be such a big assumption to make, you know. It's a much more realistic assumption to make that just like everything else, this is a transition in the great scheme of things. For a clue as to how nature would react without us, we can look at what nature looks like where we're not there, like in the deepest of the oceans, in the deserts, in space, in forests where people have not yet or are not present in large numbers. What does nature do? It takes over, it's chaotic, it's wild, it's sometimes beautiful, but also sometimes scary and ferocious. So I think that there will be all of this, and mostly just nature that is agnostic to humans, you know, just it continues to do its business. I think what nature would look like without us would be not just unharmed, but also untamed.
So there's another kind of body of narratives, environmental politics, that also argues that actually humans could be a benign force, a force in which nature thrives, through which nature thrives. It's not happening now, at least in most parts of the world, and definitely not in Malta. That is kind of our calling as humans now. Our first calling is to steward, to be the guardians of the garden. Yeah. We haven't done that job very well. We have quite messed up, but it's kind of the core of what I want to say. And I think that we have lost the joy of the imagination, thinking of ourselves, of our place in the world.
With threat to biodiversity is habitat loss, such as deforestation and overexploitation of natural resources. If you pull us out of the world today, habitat loss will halt at the current state. Over time, nature will reclaim this space, although it will not necessarily be able to return to its prior complexity, at least not before a very long time. The pollutants we have pumped into the air, soil, and water will continue to affect the ecosystem far after we have gone, and the destabilization of the environment and climate will keep leading living communities into a different trajectory than if we were never here. This scenario played out in the Chernobyl exclusion zone following the nuclear explosion. Despite how spectacular the images may seem, the biodiversity there is still lower than it is in clear zones outside the area. Likewise, while it was uplifting to see dolphins in our harbors and other mammals in the streets in Europe, these animals have always been there. They just had to be a little bit shyer because of our noise and abuse. So the healing that we want to see takes time.
As we've seen in 2020, I mean, when there were some strict lockdowns between March and summer 2020, nature reacts really quickly. So you would have animals moving in big metropolis where you have a lot of pollution, you know. Last year we saw that some cities which were always covered in smog, that they had a clear sky, for example. So that would happen more and more. I think you would have some really big changes, maybe weather-wise as well. Even coastlines would change, you know, because of course we have shaped, let's say, our land. So once you take the humans out of the equation, over months, years, you would even start seeing changes in the landscape, you know?
Yes, almost like a cancer at the moment that's sort of lost its signal with the rest of the system, and it's suddenly growing and growing and growing and growing without any limits, and it's causing all kinds of havoc, and has a big effect on the whole body of Earth. If you see Earth as one body, as one system, it's like, for example, Chernobyl, which was the result of a huge human disaster, but was then left without any kind of human interference. It's flourished since. It's such a beautiful place now. Forests, animals. It's a lush place after humans have gone there. So I think that would be the first part of the response. I think over time, perhaps humans would be missed in the sense that, first of all, nature went through a really beautiful and such a complex evolutionary process for humans to come here. It's really amazing when you look at all the phases that life went through to come to humans. And I think if that is just wiped out, it's also losing a lot and losing a lot of potential. And also this idea of life becoming more complex and more conscious is lost if humans are suddenly wiped out. So there is that side of it. I mean, I really see humanity as the conscious side of life, sort of looking upon itself, because we have this ability to sense where we are, to reflect upon it. And I'm not saying that we're the only species to do this, because I think that's also misguided, and we know so little about plants, for example, and trees. It's our knowledge is really, really, really limited, and we think we're this top of evolution species that can't get any better. But I do see a lot of value in how humans can be. There's such a possibility for humans to be stewards, carers, designers. We have so vast abilities if we concentrate on being in tune with the rest of nature, rather than kind of waging some war on the rest of it, because we're unable to see the links between everything. I feel that we act the way that we do because we've lost the ability to see things as a whole system. And here I look at systems theory as something. There's a physicist and ecologist called Fritjof Capra, who speaks about the crisis that we're in as a crisis of perception more than anything. And it's this perception that needs to change for us to get to something else, to something more harmonious. So yes, I really think there are these two sides of the nature feeling just a sigh of relief, because we're causing the general body a lot of ill health at the moment. And it can be felt like so many species are going into extinction every day because of anthropogenic activities. But at the same time, the loss of what humans can be in their highest form, in their best state, is, I think, also it would be a huge loss for nature as a whole.